heard the saying over and over again, it takes a village. But on today's episode, we're going to talk to a true pioneer who's been building villages in our town for a very long time. It's none other than Mr. Tim Tramble. He's going to talk to us today and tell us what it takes to build a village and what you can do to help continue to build villages right along in your community. Tramble was one of my very first guests when I first got started doing the podcast. We were just working out some of the bugs, may have a little audio issues in there and here and there, but I really want you to bear in there with us and get through it. A very good show. Mr. Tim Tramble, the Executive Director of the St. Luke's Foundation, is going to teach us what it takes to build a village.
This is Strategic Moves with Ken Dow.
Remember, as a kid, you would go down the side of houses when aluminum siding first came out. And when siding first came out, you would run down the house and you would rub your hand on the house and your hands would be white or whatever color they painted the house. And that was lead paint actually on that. And we would still go out and play all day and probably eat and do whatever without washing our hands or any of that stuff. Generations went on dealing with that as it went on. When did it become an issue? Because it would seem to me, now I'm 54 years old, that by now he would have had some solutions or something. What's the deal with the lead? Why didn't we get to that kind of point, you think?
So the reality is that if you trace lead levels back, many of us actually had lead poisoning. Social emotionally, we find a way to persevere. But the reality is that lead is a very serious element that can impact harm.
We're going to get right to it. So tell us a little bit about you growing up.
My sister is old enough to be my mom.
Okay.
I am the last born of 13. And my closest sister is 5 years older than.
Okay.
So a lot of my sisters and brothers are older. My fathers and my mothers. One of my sisters lived in Glenville, and my closest relative I hung out with was her sons, and they lived in Glenville. So
where did they live in Glenville?
they lived on 131st off the west side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was like my second home.
In the Huff neighborhood, where did you grow up over there?
East 81st and Superior. I went to Zawinski.
Okay.
You want to go deep?
Yeah, we want to. Yeah, we want to figure out who you are. Yeah.
I went to Zawinski.
Yeah, I remember Swiss schools. Yeah.
East 79.
That was 79th, right?
And then when they did the whole busing thing, I went to Daniel E. Morgan.
Okay.
From Daniel E. Morgan, my mom put me in a school called Lutheran Urban School on East 55th.
Okay.
Now I think it's some charter school, but it's on East 55th in Superior. And then I went to East Heights.
So what was it like growing up over there in the Huff neighborhood when you was coming up?
I grew up during the crack epidemic.
Correct.
I'm 51 years old. At that time, in the 1980s, 86, 87, 88, when I was in high school, it was like the height.
That was the height. Yeah, that's when we were there. Yeah.
And so my friends, most of them were selling.
Exactly.
And they were selling very close to. I just chose not to do that. That was anything that I wanted to do. But outside of that, everything else, other than using or selling drugs, I never used or sold drugs. But outside of that, I was very acculturated into my community. I grew up during a time, if you were of your community, you had community pride.
Correct.
And I had the pride of being from East 81st and Superior. And I really didn't want to, like my mom was telling me, I'm going to move to a foreign land to go to Lutheran school. So for me, growing up in the neighborhood, growing up in the inner city, I told the story about how I really felt my passion in community develop. And it was really from seeing my neighborhood for the first time from the eyes of a visitor. But trust me, during my childhood, I feel like I had the most amazing childhood. Although I saw a lot of decline during the time I was a child on my street in the Huff neighborhood. Went through a lot of decline during those years. I enjoyed every minute of my childhood. It was wonderful.
I went to Empire. It was funny because you guys lived across the park. So we used to say, oh, there goes the people across the park. And it used to be that little rivalry that you come up the hill and come up to our side of the park. And every day it was chasing them back across, was doing that. I went to school with a lot of guys who lived on 80th. And we played football against you guys a lot over there, where your side would come and we would meet right there down in the middle of the boulevard. And there was a place called the Farmer's Yard over on the east side that we all would come and play football. And we did that a lot. And as we got older, you guys went to East High and we got bused. So it was kind of crazy back then. Our middle school, we didn't get bused. They sent us to our neighborhood school, but then they sent us away for high school. They sent you guys over to our neighborhood for middle school, but then they let you guys go to East High, you know. And I was sort of like you. I wanted to go to Glenville. One of the things Glenville, and I don't know if East High used to do it, but back in those days, the football team and the band would actually march through the neighborhood. And as a kid, I can remember seeing that, and that gave you a sense of pride of saying, hey, I want to go to Glenville. I want to be a part of that team. I want to do those kind of things. And as we got older, like you say, things changed. Things just seemed to just kind of got worse, you know. So you went on ahead and you graduated East High and you went to Central State.
Central State University, yes, the only public HBCU.
Now, I got something that you didn't know that I know. Central State University. My wife went there and you guys were in the same apartment building.
Really? Was that the Chihuahua?
At the Chihuahuas.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She stayed at the Chihuahuas. And she said, oh, yeah, I remember him very well. Lisa McGuthrie, and she was there.
Who's your what?
Her name was Yvonne White at the time. Yeah. And her and Lisa and Audrey, all of them kind of all hung out together. And they all went to school together.
Yeah, love Audrey. And she's a champion of Central State. So, yeah, just a wonderful person who works for Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes.
Very proud of her and what she did, how she represents Central State.
How was your time at Central State down there?
It was wonderful. My situation was a bit different because my wife and I were teen parents.
Okay.
So my first year, I stayed in the Chihuahuas. It was just my first year.
Oh.
But after that, my wife graduated from high school and we had a child.
Okay.
So we stayed off campus together raising our child. We did that.
Interesting. And so while you were at Central State, you was raising your kid?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And your wife was in school, or was she home?
She was at school. She's a graduate of Central State as well.
So both of you guys were going to Central State and raising your kid at the same time. So y'all lived off campus, I would imagine, and
We lived off campus, yes. And we're still together. We are high school sweethearts, so we're still together.
That's very interesting. Out of everything you did, I think that's really, really interesting. That's very rare, and it had to be rough and tough back then, right?
It was definitely tough. And if you know anything about Xenia,
Right.
area,
Exactly.
Central State,
Exactly.
the thing is that you got this HBCU in this area surrounded by cornfields,
Correct.
surrounded by racist people,
Mhm.
right? And so living in Xenia as a family, as a young family, yeah, it was an experience. Definitely toughened you up and got you prepared for what you have to deal with.
Yeah, big kudos for that, man. Because I went down there, my oldest daughter, she goes there now, she's graduating this year. And I went down there midsummer last year, I think it was, for something she was doing. But I remember I had to go through town and drop the wife off to go to town to get some stuff to bring back to the dorm. I remember when I got in the middle of Xenia, man, they were having a great big old Trump rally. Huge Trump rally. And up here, if somebody has like a Trump rally or something, it's like, you know, they having a Trump. No, I had to ride through like a Trump rally. And I was like, oh my God, it was eye-opening. Oh, man.
Isn't that amazing that just 3 miles away, the
Exactly.
HBCU?
2.
That's right. You know, Central State is really like,
You know,
the capital of Wilberforce at Central State.
I know that's right. So y'all both graduated, made it through that, I take it, and came out at the same time, or you had to stay a little longer? Or?
I actually came out earlier, and she came out, I think, just one semester after me.
So you stayed in Xenia and worked a little bit?
I stayed in Xenia, worked a little bit. I worked for a company called Hill Springs Products for 6 months, but then I landed a job. So I did have to come home. You mentioned CT Consultants. I landed that job.
And so what was you doing at CT Consultants?
CT Consultants, I was a environmental specialist, and basically I downloaded rain gauges, installed range gauges, installed flow meters, I did assessments of water treatment system.
Okay. All right. And then how long were you there?
I was there for a year and a half before I went to the health department.
Okay. So you went to the health department. Which administration was you under? Was that Mike or Frank?
I was under the Mike White administration.
Mhm.
And I was in the lead department, so I was
Mhm.
dealing with childhood lead poisoning.
Mhm.
It's interesting that, we're still dealing with that today.
I want to stay on this lead thing just for a second because it's something I just don't quite get with the lead thing. And it's just me, and it could be my naivety or whatever you want to say. I just don't know. But it seemed like to me that I knew we grew up, and I could say we because you're close to my age and we were in the same thing. We grew up heavy in lead paint and all kinds of lead products that were going on in the community. I remember as a kid, you would go down the side of houses when aluminum siding first came out. And when siding first came out, you would run down the house and you would rub your hand on the house and your hands would be white or whatever color they painted the house. And that was lead paint actually on that. And we would still go out and play all day and probably eat and do whatever without washing our hands or any of that stuff. Generations went on dealing with that as it went on. When did it become an issue? Because it would seem to me now, I'm 54 years old, that by now we would have had some solutions or something. What's the deal with the lead? Why didn't we get to that kind of point, you think?
So the reality is that if you trace lead levels back, many of us actually had lead poisoning. Social emotionally, we find a way to persevere. But the reality is that lead is a very serious element that can impact, impact abilities. So we serious. And again, you may have had lead. Amount of lead in a child's body today that's considered lead poisoning significantly less amount of lead in a child's body 30 years ago that was considered lead poison, right? I mean, 30 years ago had to have, and I'm going really back on my memory, I believe it was like 35 meters.
So there has been some real big improvements and moving towards trying to battle this.
There has been improvements in recognizing the significance of levels, right? So even if you have like 10 micrograms per deciliter, that is significant. We're young. That was under the threshold of lead poisoning.
Gotcha.
It's okay.
Okay. So I do remember talking to you and other people back in the days about the whole development of incorporating the community to play a role and letting you guys know what the community wanted from you guys. And that's how the library came, the kitchen that was there, and the restaurant, and getting people to work in the restaurant that were from the community. I was all in that stuff. I was all in there really big time. And Sabre Scott actually was working there for you guys. And I was going through this weight transformation and trying to lose some weight and having some health issues. And one of the things they asked me to do was, you ought to take cooking classes so that you can learn to eat healthier. So I was going through online looking for cooking classes in Cleveland. And lo and behold, I ran across your cooking class and then found out Sabre was working up there, which made it even better. And had a great time there, man. Cooked with Eric Wells a few times, Val Scott. And my favorite was, her name was Chef Robin Blair. I remember she taught us a whole lot up there. The funniest thing, and I know you may remember because she had to be involved in everything. You remember Priscilla? She took cooking classes, but was allergic to everything. Everything we'll make, and we'll get ready to cook it. She was like, all right, we'll make it, but I can't eat it because I'm allergic to it. And we'd be like, you're allergic to everything we're going to cook. I think that whole time we took that whole class, it was one meal or one dish that she actually really sat down and ate with us. But learned a lot there, man. The kitchen that you guys built there was awesome. So tell me a little bit about the development of that and working with the folks in the community to pull all of that off. Was that your first big project you did?
Oh, no. That was not the first big project. I was at Burton Bell Carr for 20 years. That was in the second decade.
Wow.
The first decade. There are over 300 homes built in the central neighborhood that was built that time.
Wow.
Yeah. So you go on 36, 37, 38 off of Cedar,
right,
off of Central, off of Community College.
Oh, that's really huge. I didn't even know it was that many homes. I remember the development going up because there were new homes being built over there.
Yeah, and the significance of that is that you all remember Central, that it was in the 90s. It was comprised primarily of public housing. And I remember early on in my first year are telling me your task is next to impossible. You're expected to build homes for sale in an area that just has public housing cemeteries. And this day, I know the value, and I know like get people. The formula is simple. It's mass construction. When people see that there are going to be many structures, there are going to be many people that invest in the community. They're not going to be on an island by themselves. Many people will make those investments. We're given a $12 million loan, revolving loan from HUD. We're able to be creative with how we use it. We used it as a revolving structure loan.
Correct.
It's a very, very low interest rate. So today, I think if anyone knows about development, one of the key costs associated with development is the interest rates of your loan. A loan at conventional rate or 0.5 today, which is going up, it's probably going to be like homes versus a loan of 1.8.
Right.
That's a substantial difference in the amount of interest paid on the construction of property. And that allows you to sell the property at probably 10 to 15% less. Couple that with the subsidies that the city was providing at that time, and we were providing up to $45,000. And at that time, that truly was an affordable for sale housing development. It's tough to make those numbers work today because the numbers don't work like they did then.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I had no idea it was that many houses put off in that area. You know, just riding through there, it was lots of beautiful homes built over there. I think Councilwoman Cleveland ended up over in that area as well.
Yes, she brought one of the central comments home.
Yes. So I thought, coming from our perspective, I did very well with that. What was the biggest challenges coming in there?
Is the neighborhood politics, is navigating the funding streams. How do you tie in to funding streams that exist? Tax abatement policy is 15 years, 100% of the improvement of the property. If you're building construction, but you can get that if you go to Tremont, if you go to Tufts, get that if you go to Ohio City.
You know, and what's very dangerous about that is that if you have community development directors or people, don't have to be a community director, it could be just community period, where you have developers or people who come in a community who don't keep that in mind, it devastates these communities. I know from there was a whole lot of other branches that popped off after that.
So yeah, you're very interested in Bridgeport Place. Bridgeport Place was built in 2007. It was completed in December, actually, of that year. And I'm very impressed that you were aware of our development protocol, our development approach, our development strategy. And so it being the first building built with Kinsman in 40 years, we engaged the community. We have a ground floor presence within the community. We're going to be here. And now what else it should be here? And so we got all types of feedback as to what should be there, but there are things communities say it wants, but then there has to be in a financial model that works. There has to be enough secondary market in order for it to work financially. Oh yeah, we want healthier options. That's why we did a healthy cafe. And all we have is McDonald's, Burger King. That's all they build in our neighborhoods. But then you go to other neighborhoods and they have these cafes and they have more healthy options. So just being cognizant of, if we build this, we're going to need the patronage in order for it to stay. It's a tremendous job that requires a really unreasonable amount of your time in order to be successful. But I did it.
Your hard work didn't go in vain, man. Not at all, because there's other CDCs and other people who model your success, and they use your building and that development corporation as an example of what could be.
You know the history. Sometimes I have to tell people that history because people assume being in a neighborhood where you are of the community and you want to see valuable things that won't make people comfortable in their dependence, but would move them towards independence and stability. You are passionate about that. Live it, you sleep it, you bathe in it. It's your everything.
Right.
And sometimes, not that you do it for anyone to recognize it, but sometimes they won't realize all the things.
Oh no.
And I will tell you, when people do, and it's eerie because I just had this conversation with staff this morning. When people do, you don't really think that you've done anything significant, because still look at the community and still look at what isn't there that should be there. So you feel like you've just scratched the surface. You've not anything so extraordinary that should be patted on the back. I think my success story is I was able to show and evidence that, look, the things that we're trying to do, we're going to do them. We're going to get them done. So I had a lot of champions like Indian Lee. Was first at List, then went to Neighborhood Progress, and then went to the Cleveland Foundation. I had people like Durrell Rush, who was at Neighborhood Progress, and then went to the City of Cleveland. Mark McDermott, who was at Enterprise Community Partners. John Moorhead, I just learned that he passed away at the Ohio Finance Fund, who I reached out to, talked to, and he was the first to invest into some of the things that we were doing. They invested into all of the things that you love about Bridgeport. I do have to give props to Randy McShepard, Damian Forche, and Kimon. Those were the pioneers, and behind With Our Great Partnership. With Our Great Partnership is the success story, is the sustaining success story of Urban Agriculture Innovation Zone. So yeah, there were a number of people from various places that saw the vision, saw the work ethic, saw the results of when they did fund and poured into the work. And that is how you get all of those things accomplished, is in knowing that you say you're going to do something,
you can get it done, and it's easier for them to believe and look forward to helping you do
that. Stick-to-itiveness. Not everyone have that stick-to-itiveness, and one by one, people begin to fall off and not their part at making it the vision that we had. They are the Urban Agriculture Innovation Zone now. They make up the Urban Agriculture Innovation Zone.
The box restaurant that you built, or the facility right down the street, is called the
Box.
Yeah, that's another innovative new idea that you guys had came up. What was the concept behind that?
To make a long story short, learned about shipping container retrofitting and designing a space of retrofitted shipping containers, and it just evolved. And we had a Rose architectural fellow on staff and put his work on coming up with the concept, and came up with the brilliant concept. Really a visionary of the construction. But yeah, that was the conception Box. The reality is that it costs way more than we thought it would. But the good thing is that it did work. It ended up being a $2 million project. But we were able to offset the cost with a lot of subsidy and a lot of grants. There's no mortgage on it, but have utilities and all of that cost and your maintenance costs. So you're able to actually rent out the spaces. Spaces start $275 a month.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
That was the goal, right? Retailers that support each other.
And how long can you rent one of those places? This is not long-term rent, are they?
They are.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a business that is ideal for the community.
Man, you was over there doing some stuff, man. I keep saying, gee, I got you. Man, you was doing some good stuff over there. Let's talk about the radio real quick.
Yeah. I looked into it, and sure enough, I stumbled across the concept of community radio stations. It was in its infancy. I just began to study it. That's the kind of thing that I really did on my weekends. Like,
right.
I ain't had time to work on that
during the week. Right.
I worked on that during the weekends. And eventually got to the point where, okay, I conceived WOVU as something that would not be a Burton Bell Carr thing, something that would stand on its own. But when you get into policies and the stipulations and the criteria for eligibility for certain change your thought process.
Okay.
And so one of the criteria is if you are in competition, if someone else seeks that space, that frequency, they base award on how long you've been in existence. So I went to the board. The board was accepting. It's like, okay, yeah. All right, we see it. Not a lot of people. And in fact, some people told me they didn't. Why would a community development corporation do a radio station? I still see why it makes sense.
Oh yeah.
There was no platform to amplify all of the things that are available to community, all of the things that we should be talking about, all of the things that we should have dialogue around, and something that you can listen to when you're in the car with your kids.
Correct.
It didn't exist. So the reason why it made sense for the Community Development Corporation was because the Community Development Corporation on a daily basis want to promote things. There's no platform to do so. So how do we do that? We can do that on our website. We can do that in community meetings. But man, the radio station, we can do that every single day with people just tuning in on a radio dial. So that's why it made sense for the Community Development Corporation to do.
What was the criteria?
So when we first established the community radio station, and these are all good questions, we made it available for anyone. If you wanted a radio show, go through obviously you just can't just
Yeah, you just put anybody on.
right. We had a training. We would do the training once every 6 months, routinely trainings where you go through this like Radio 101,
Okay.
where we teach you all of the ins and outs. You even learn how to use the boards and all of that. And when you're done, you get a certification. And you get a guaranteed some parts of a radio show, right? Now, you might not be someone who project well, who can articulate well. And so you may not get a radio show, but you could be engineer of a radio show.
Right.
You can be a producer of a radio show. You can be someone who filters content for a radio show. But you are guaranteed some part and association with the radio station. And I would say 90% of the people that went through the training, they got a radio. So we did want it to be good radio for the listening audience. Another reason and value to have a radio station is that there are people who are generally disengaged, won't engage any other way. Like they're just not connecting to anything that is structured, anything that is formal. But a radio station,
They'll tune in.
connect to
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
So it's amplifying the needs and the interests, even to discuss the solutions that we need to come up with to deal with the problems.
I do know I'm going to have you come back again so we could talk more. And maybe you can be our person to kind of help us talk about how you guys are working more with these other organizations to come together on solving some of the issues that are taking place throughout our community. I would love for us to be able to do anything we can to help the foundation be able to push your agenda forward and help you to be successful over there.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Ken. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Well, have a wonderful day.
Thanks again for Mr. Tramble. We will leave links in our section at the bottom of our description for how you can get more information.